Hi friends, welcome back to Mrs. Pickle Wiggle. This is reading number 2, so make sure you listened to reading number 1 before you listen to this one. Where we left off last time, the witch had come downstairs to look over Mary Lou's kitchen work, and she was freed. And then Mrs. Pickle Wiggle came back down the stairs after she was no longer a witch. Well, said Mrs. Pickle Wiggle, do you see why I like to wash dishes? Mary Lou said, "Oh, Mrs. Pickle Wiggle, that was the most fun I've ever had." Mrs. Pickle Wiggle said, "Of course, you can have more fun than I can because you have so many more dishes to wash. If I only had more dishes and could take longer, I would be a princess with curly, dark brown hair, milk chocolate skin, almond eyes, and a beautiful voice, and I would sing sad songs over the dishpan. Also, if I had more dishes, I would have the witch ride through the night on a broomstick, and I could creep out on the back porch to see if she was coming. I could hear her land with a thump on the roof, and I would slip upstairs to see if she was going to slide down the chimney or thump down the stairs. Oh, there would be ever so many exciting things to pretend if only I had more dishes to wash." Here's one of the rare pictures in the book. It's Mrs. Pickle Wiggle coming down the stairs in her witch outfit. And you can see Mary Lou with her pigtails. So I forgot to say that this book doesn't have very many pictures, but when there is one, I will show you. But the rest of the time, you just have to make up pictures in your head. After a while, it stopped raining and the sun came out, and Mary Lou took her suitcase and went home. That night, her mother, it really was her mother, of course, almost fainted when she came out to the kitchen exactly 27 minutes after dinner, and Mary Lou was sweeping the floor, and all of the dishes were washed and dried and put away, and everything was immaculate. Mrs. Robertson rushed in and called Mary Lou's father, and he came out to the kitchen and pretended to fall on the floor with surprise. And then he said to Mary Lou's mother, "I like your new maid, madame. In fact, she is so much better than Tilly Slopwash, who used to be here, that I think we should invite her to the moving picture show some early evening." Then, that means the movies. They're going to go see a movie. Then Mary Lou told them all about Mrs. Pickle Wiggle, and Mary Lou's mother said, "Oh yes, I remember seeing that odd little house. She sounds like a charming friend, and if you are certain that she invited you, you may go over there after school tomorrow." The next day after school, Mary Lou went to see Mrs. Pickle Wiggle. She took her best friend Kitty Wheeling with her, and Mrs. Pickle Wiggle was very glad to see them and showed them through her upside-down house and served them tea and cookies. Kitty said, her mouth full of cookie, "My worst trouble is bed making. I just cannot get them smooth. I'd much rather wash dishes like Mary Lou, but Mother won't let me change with my sister Sally, who washes the dishes, until I have learned to make beds properly. Oh, I just despise making beds." Mrs. Pickle Wiggle poured herself another cup of tea, gave a saucer of cream to Lightfoot and 4 cookies to Wag, then said, "If you think you have a hard time making beds, Kitty, imagine how hard it is for me. You see, the cruel queen sleeps in my beds every night and inspects them every morning. And if she finds a single wrinkle, even one as big as a pin, she will have me thrown into the dungeon. Come upstairs and I'll show you how I have to make beds." They went upstairs and Mrs. Pickle Wiggle threw the covers clear off the foot of one of her own beds, and then she and Kitty helped to make it. And when they finished, it was as smooth as the floor, no wrinkles. Mrs. Pickle Wiggle said, "The secret is to throw the covers all the way back. You simply cannot smooth up a bed. If you do, there might be a wrinkle down by the foot. And of course, the cruel queen will find it, and then down to the dungeon you go." Mrs. Pickle Wiggle took the bed apart all again and said, "Now, Kitty, you and Mary Lou make the bed while I tell the cruel queen that you are ready for an inspection." She went into the closet and shut the door. When she came out, just as Kitty and Mary Lou finished the bed, she was no longer Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle, but the wicked, haughty, cruel queen. On her head she wore a glittering jeweled crown. Her hair hung down her back in deep waves. Around her shoulders she had a purple fur-trimmed robe, and on her face she wore a smile so cruel it made Kitty's teeth chatter. She stalked over to the bed and lay down. With her gold slippers she felt the bottom of the bed. With her ringed fingers she felt the tops and the sides. She stood up and with her scepter pulled back the spread to see if the pillows were wrinkled. Everything was perfect. The cruel queen's face became convulsed with fury. She yelled, "Not a wrinkle, not a single lump. I am furious. But never fear, little slaves. My day will come, and into the dungeon you will go. Come, my servants, we will go." Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle stalked into the closet. That was the beginning of Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's friendship with the children. The next day, Mary Lou and Kitty's little brother Bobby, and Bobby's friend Dickie went to Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's for tea. And the next day, they came and each brought someone else. And pretty soon, every single child in town had been or was going to Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's house. She showed Bobby how to sneak out and get the fireplace logs without being caught by the enemy. She taught Max how to take out the ashes from the fireplace without making a sound and without leaving a trace that would show the train robbers who were on his trail that he and the sheriff had camped there that night. Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle certainly knew how to make work fun, and she also knew that there are certain kinds of work that children love to do, even though they do not know how to do it very well, like painting and ironing and cooking and carpentry, just like in Montessori school. One day at Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's, there were 2 children baking cookies. One child baking a pie and getting flour on the floor and eating most of the dough. One child was ironing, in a very wrinkly fashion, all of Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's clean clothes. 4 children were chopping kindling. 2 children were painting the doghouse. 3 children were darning old pirate socks of Mr. Piggle-Wiggle's. And pirates everywhere, digging in the backyard, shouting and yelling, running through the house and grabbing hunks of raw cookie dough. Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle was sitting over in a corner of the living room sewing on doll clothes. She was wearing the jeweled crown, and Kitty Wheeling was standing beside her throne, which was a chair with a tablecloth draped over it, dipping her hairbrush in a glass of water and making Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's hair into long, wet curls. Kitty said, "Your Highness, shall I use the gold or the silver hairpins?" Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle said, "Oh, let's use the ones with the diamonds in them, hairdresser. They look better with this crown." Just then the telephone rang, and it was some mother wanting to know what to do with her little girl who wouldn't take a bath. And that is how Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle got started with her wonderful cures. She told Hubert's mother about the won't pick up the toys cure, Patsy's mother about the radish cure, Alan's mother about the slow eater, tiny bite taker cure, Anne and Joan's mother about the fighter quarrelers cure, Dick's mother about the selfish boy cure, Mary's mother about the answer backer cure, and Bobby and Larry and Susan's mother about the never want to go to betters cure. That's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called The Won't Pick Up Toys Cure. We'll just start this chapter. Hubert was a very lucky little boy whose grandfather always sent him wonderful toys for Christmas. Hubert's mother said that his grandfather sent him these marvelous presents because Hubert was such a dear little boy. His father said that it was to make up for that awful name they had wished on him. Hubert was named for his grandfather. His full name was Hubert Egbert Prentice. Hubert liked his presents his grandfather sent him, but who wouldn't? He had an electric train with a track that went 4 times around his bedroom and into the closet and out again, and had 7 stations and every signal there was, and 2 bridges and a snow shed. He also had a little builder set so large that he could build regular office buildings, and a great big wagon full of stone blocks made into shapes so that he could build big stone bridges for his electric train and stone buildings and even stone barracks for his 1,500 toy soldiers. Hubert also had a circus with every kind of wooden jointed animal and clowns and tightrope walkers and trapeze artists. He had a little typewriter and a real desk and a little radio and 2 automobiles. He had about 100 or more airplanes and little cars. He had a fire engine with real sirens and lights and hook and ladders, and so many books that he had to have 2 bookcases in his room. Wow, he has lots of things. Hubert liked all of his toys, and he was moderately generous about letting other children play with them, but he never put his things away. When his mother made his bed, she had to pick her way around and in and out and over the electric train and track. She had to take circus performers off the bureau and the bedposts. She had to pick up books that had been thrown face down on the floor, and she was continually gathering up the little builder set. It used to take her about 3 hours to clean up Hubert's room and about 1 hour to do the rest of her housework. She would send Hubert up to put his toys away, but all he ever did was to stuff them under the bed or into the closet, and in the morning when his mother cleaned his room, they were there for her to pick up. Mrs. Prentice was getting a little tired of this. One rainy Saturday, Hubert invited all of his little friends to play up in his room. He and Dickie and Charlie and Billy and Tommy and Bobby. They got out every single toy that Hubert owned and played with them, and then, just before dinner, they all went home and left a mess. Well, that is not very respectful, is it? Hubert's mother didn't know a thing about this until the next morning when she went in to make Hubert's bed. Then she just stood in the doorway and looked. The electric train track went under the bed 5 times, and under the bureau and under the chairs and around the desk and into the closet. All along the tracks were bridges and buildings of the stone blocks and whole towns built from the little builder set. On the bed and under the bed and on the bureau were the circus tent, the animals, the clowns, the tightrope walkers, and the trapeze artists. The floor was littered with books and little automobiles and airplanes and painting sets and chemical sets and wood burning sets and crayons and coloring books and the little typewriter and the printing set and teddy bears and balls and jacks and Parcheesi games and jigsaw puzzles and soldiers, soldiers, soldiers. Okay, we're going to stop there. We'll pick up next time. Thanks for watching. See you next time.